right, everybody, here comes Everybody Shrugged, a dystopian comedy novel by me, Walt Pilcher. Forget John Galt. Follow the hilarious trials and tribulations of University Professor Gardy Lavager and U.S. Army Major Tony Farina, each with a merry band of fanatical sycophants as they romp across an alternate 1980s America, identifying and outlawing substances hazardous to your health, only to turn them into weapons of mass disruption. Hold on for dear life to your car, French fries, beer, cigarettes, breath mints, fluoride toothpaste, sexy underwear, makeup, coffee, bacon, eggs, milk, TV, and anything else that tastes good, feels good, or is fun to do, because here comes Congress to ban it. Economic and social chaos reigns, with bankrupted industries and soaring unemployment. When Lavager's harmful substance research feeds the government's reckless campaign to restrict popular products deemed harmful, and the military is stripped of guns and bombs because war is hazardous too, the Army's patriotic clandestine DEFCON force kidnaps him to steal and weaponize his work in the name of national defense. A harmful substance race ensues, and an unthinkable foreign takeover seems imminent as all sides vie for the one secret substance that may spell the difference between peace and global chaos, while Lavager fears for his life from enemies here and abroad. From a Pentagon sub-basement through the Oval Office to the barracks of an almost forgotten Army base, into the not-so-hallowed halls of academia, and off to a shadowy castle eyrie in the foothills of an obscure mountain range in the bowels of Eastern Europe, an uproariously eccentric yet endearing cast of characters bumble at cross purposes through antics so outlandish that you have to keep reading to see how this delightful poke in the eye is resolved. This farcical thriller has all the elements of a great page-turner: international intrigue, domestic crises, incredible ironies, history, the triumph of good over evil, comedy, tender romance, and even sex. Jump from the absurd to the ridiculous, careening between satire and reality in this side-splitting tale of government overreach on steroids. Nothing is sacred, and no one is safe. Well, I'd have to say that's a pretty good introduction. Pretty exciting, wouldn't you say as well? But let's give you a little bit more of a flavor of what the novel is all about, what it looks like inside the pages. First of all, let's go to a university in California where Dr. Gardy Lavager, head of the American Ecotoxicology Association, is musing about the latest developments. All right, well, here we are at the Leland F.P. Mason Wesley Junior University in Southern California. I was going to put on a professor's costume, if you will, complete with a pipe and leather elbow patches, but the pipe, of course, wouldn't work since tobacco has been banned in this situation. So let's read from page 25 in chapter 2. The latest restrictions would go into effect at noon California time, and Dr. Gardner Mellors Lavager, BS, MS, PhD, was pleased. It did mean some inconvenience, but it represented years of dreams and hard work continuing to pay off. Already, all internal combustion engines were outlawed for surface transportation. All tobacco products had been banned, along with anything containing caffeine. Soon monosodium glutamate would be forbidden, as well as bacon and hot dogs. The list was long and happily getting longer. True, the bills to outlaw artificial sweeteners, alcohol, and scratch and sniff ads, and requiring everyone to wear hats while out in the sun, were still hung up in committee, but they would come. They would come. After all, Lavager recalled with satisfaction, at one time the paper dye bills had also looked doomed. Nevertheless, after today, no nose would be blown or toilet flushed with anything but white tissue, except maybe by those few diehards who'd begun hoarding the bad stuff when it looked like the president would sign the ban into law. High school gyms would be festooned with white crepe paper for every big dance, and cheerleaders would be every bit as vivacious with white pom-poms as they had ever been with the multicolored ones that are so harmful. Well, of course, there's always a minority who didn't appreciate what was being done for them, he reflected. A peaceful protest demonstration or two, that was to be expected. And even the bombing of a police station or an IRS office now and then, while deplorable, were just the birth pangs of a better world. It would pass. Students on bicycles pedaled from class to class to the dorms, the student union, or liquor store, most of them oblivious to the important work carried out in this one building, Lavager's laboratory. It was set well apart from the nearest other structure in a natural hollow where, in fact, it couldn't be seen from the main campus unless one climbed up to the hallowed old Struthers Memorial Bell Tower. No one went up there much anymore, not since they installed the heavy reinforced glass on the observation deck as a deterrent to suicides. That had been and still was to some extent controversial. The student suicide rate had become embarrassing, especially with its little spikes on Parents' Weekend. On the other hand, the glass atrociously muffled the bells, making them sound like somebody was mugging the good humor man. There was no question where Dr. Lavager stood on the issue. Noise pollution and suicide amount to the same thing in the long run, he had observed in a letter to the editor of the campus newspaper, The Masonite. So it's not a question of solving one problem and creating another with the glass. It's really solving two problems at once. The next morning, someone threw a rock through the windshield of his experimental electric automobile with an anonymous note suggesting he do unto himself that which many believed he was doing unto them. Meanwhile, in Nebraska, at a seemingly abandoned Army ammunition dump called Camp Shafto, MADCOM, under the command of Major Tony Farina, secretly goes about its mission to weaponize harmful substances. Let's join Farina as he prepares for his first day under the new laws. I realize I probably look more like a Cuban revolutionary than an American soldier in this outfit, but it's the closest I could come. So here we go. After his breakfast, Farina donned a helmet liner and strode outside. Spec 4 Jenkins, who had been dozing against the side of the building, snapped to attention and saluted smartly. He extended an arm in the direction of a shiny olive drab bicycle parked at the curb. Attached to the bicycle was a Spartan sidecar, and stenciled on each of three narrow fenders was a white five-pointed star in a circle and the legend U.S. Army TP-40. On the handlebars, next to a generator-operated headlight, was a placard with the familiar white letter O on a blue field, an officer's bike. "Where's the Jeep?" asked Farina, annoyed as he returned the salute. "It's against the law now, sir, like almost everything else with an internal combustion engine, but the motor pool's issuing these until the steam Jeeps get here." "Well, nuts." One of Major Farina's first orders upon arriving at Camp Shafto was to outlaw the S word in honor of his favorite World War II hero, General Anthony McAuliffe, who, when his 101st Airborne Division was surrounded by Germans during the Battle of the Bulge, answered the German commander's order to surrender with the single word, nuts. Because he and McAuliffe shared the same first name, Farina liked to think they carried the same fighting spirit as well. Nuts is a good four-letter word, and I'm sure you'll have no trouble learning to use it while you're here, Farina was fond of telling the men as often as he needed to, and he tried to practice what he preached. The two men rode off together on the bike, Jenkins pedaling furiously at first, but slowing down after only about 200 meters. He lunged and panted pathetically on the little hill going up by the officers' club, and until finally Major Farina made him stop. "I'm okay, sir, honest. This is only my first day on this thing. I'll be in shape in a week or so. Oh, geez, I think I'm going to throw up." Major Farina and Spec 4 Jenkins took a moment to gaze out over the parade ground. Next to the flagpole on the parade ground was a Civil War cannon from which in years past blank cartridges had been fired each day during the retreat ceremony at 1700 hours. The cannon had been donated to Camp Shafto by an American Legion post in Alabama. One night, shortly before Major Farina arrived to assume command, some young soldiers full of 3-2 beer loaded the old weapon with real grape shot they had stolen from an antique store near the city. It was oversized, but still they managed to force it deep into the barrel, along with a liberal quantity of blasting powder. They wrenched the cannon around to the left and aimed it in the general direction of the officers' club before dropping a match into the firing hole and running like crazy. Nothing happened after about a minute and a half, so one of the men, who had had more of a snootful than the others, crept up to the cannon to investigate. After a few minutes of poking around it in the dark, he staggered back to the barracks to sleep it off. Later that night, patrolling MPs noticed the cannon had been moved, so they returned it to its original position. When the miscreants awoke the next day, they could hardly believe their eyes at the sight of the old cannon apparently undisturbed. Vastly relieved, they shrugged off the incident as nothing more than an alcoholic hallucination. That evening, as the honor guard and bugler approached for the retreat ceremony, the cannon went off with a roar that was heard for 10 miles. Not only did the guilty boys wet their pants right then and there, but also the shot demolished a general store on Highway 75, and the cannon itself was heaved backwards into the headquarters building, causing heavy damage, but no injuries. Miraculously, the gun itself was unscathed. A formation of all personnel was called immediately. As everyone stood at attention, MPs slowly walked up and down between the ranks, arresting anyone whose pants were wet. When Major Farina took over, he had the cannon plugged permanently, and after that, the sounds of retreat were heard on a loudspeaker operated by a cassette tape player locked in the adjutant's desk. By now, you may have gotten the idea, and you're right if you have, that every single character in this book is a moron. Later, Major Tony Farina discusses the situation with his executive officer, Captain Ignacio Leon. "Good morning, Iggy," said Major Farina. "Have there been any new developments?" "Not much, I'm afraid," said Captain Leon. "About 10,000 Chinese Americans in San Francisco staged a demonstration at City Hall to protest the ban on monosodium glutamate. That one's still going on." "Well, what's the latest from the National Rifle Association?" asked Farina. "They're for the military and against the government, all right, but since private citizens can still have guns, they can't figure out whether the Second Amendment's been violated or not. Anyway, the NRA is telling its members to hoard ammunition, so now they're competing with the police on that, which doesn't make the police very happy. They're also telling everybody to buy pellet guns. Oh, and now the gun control people have had some kind of epiphany and are throwing the NRA's favorite slogan back at them, except now it's guns don't kill people, ammunition kills people. Could be a big problem brewing there." "That's confusing. What about the Sierra Club?" "Well, they're happy as clams, of course, which, by the way, will also be outlawed soon because in large servings they contain unhealthy amounts of selenium. The clams, I mean." "Okay, then how about the church leaders?" "Not a factor, sir. Publicly, they agree with the environmentalists who are fond of quoting the Bible about how mankind is supposed to take care of the earth." "Yeah, I remember that from Sunday school," said Farina. "On the other hand, common sense tells them the government's gone too far with the restrictions, but they don't say that to their congregations for fear of looking too political and losing their tax exemptions. So they're just riding it out from the sidelines." One more vignette to illustrate just how seriously Dr. Gardy Lavager takes his seemingly God-given mission to protect everyone from harmful substances. Here he is in his laboratory with his niece Letitia and his assistant George Smith, modeling what he hopes will become the clothing of the future. Along with his high-top galoshes, Dr. Lavager was now wearing an olive drab one-piece muumuu with long sleeves that were cut extremely wide. Loose elastic drew the garment together at his neck and kept it from falling from his shoulders. Similarly, the hem at the bottom was drawn together by an elastic band just above galoshes' top level. It wasn't tight enough to restrict walking freedom, yet it didn't let the garment flare or flounce like a skirt. Several pockets were sewn onto the outfit around Dr. Lavager's middle, and he was using them for his wallet, pocket calculator, loose change, and keys. One of the pockets had a pocket protector with a pen and pencil set clipped in it. On his head was a simple straw hat with a wide brim, like a rice paddy peasant's, only wider. "How do you like it?" he asked, putting on a pair of cheap sunglasses and stroking his goatee. George and Letitia looked up from their rat cages and stared at their beloved mentor in awe. It's terrific, Uncle Gardy," said Letitia. "Thank you. I had it made up for me over in the home economics department." "Well, turn around and let's get a look at you, Uncle Gardy," enthused Letitia. "After all, it's dark in here. George installed ultraviolet filters on the fluorescent lights yesterday." Lavager took a few steps, turned around, and struck a casual pose, modeling his prototype uniform of the protected future. When standing still with his arms at his sides, he resembled nothing so more than an immense hand grenade with feet. "I'll wear it the rest of the week and see how it feels. Then maybe I'll have a few more made up and test them on some other people." "Well, I know one thing," said George. "You're going to have a lot of fun with that when nature calls." "Oh, George, really?" cried Letitia. "Well, are you convinced yet that you should get this book? Of course, I think you should, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. You can get it from Amazon.com. And for now, so long, and thanks for watching. Oh, one more thing. No harmful substances were abused in the writing and publishing of this book. Bye for now.